Greetings. Welcome back to my community. In service to the one, I am Amber Dawn Star, practical mystic and energetic activist, and for over 34 years, master breathologist. Thank you. Good to see you again. Today's topic is called dissonance. And what does that mean, and where is it showing up in your life? Well, I have a description. I have the actual what it means. So it is tension or a clash resulting from the combination of two disharmonious or unsuitable elements. So today I want to ask you, where in your life are you experiencing dissonance? And an example that I can use out of my own life is that, say you have a past with someone, and it's a long past, it's a long history of a past. And in that relationship, you have done everything that you knew to do to make it a good, positive, working relationship, something that you were proud of, something that you were saying, okay, I'm doing really well here. And the other people involved don't see it that way. They have their own truth of what their experience was with in relationship to whatever was going on. So every interaction that you had with these people, they have their idea and their truth of that interaction, and you have yours. So what happens when you are told that their truth and their experience of you and them together was horrifying? And you're wondering, what? Wait a minute. That's not my remembrance. That's not my truth of the situation of what happened in the past. So you're doing everything you can in the interim to make it right. Even at the time, if you were doing something that you knew was not okay, you apologized. You said you were sorry, and you were asked for forgiveness, and you were told that you were forgiven. However, years go by, and these memories are talked about and brought up again. And in that current time, you're told again that it wasn't okay, that you weren't okay, that you weren't sincere enough in your apologies, that you had to do more. And you've done every single thing you can do. You have shown up. You've been willing to talk about it. You've been willing to go to therapy about it. You've been willing to have a real conversation, heart to heart, about it. And they don't want to. They don't want to have a real conversation. They just want to yell and scream at the top of their lungs and say to you how horrible that you are and how horrible their memories are of you. So if you've spent years attempting to get past that and to have a real relationship with these people, and they will not allow you to be in present time, they are only going to keep you in the past. And of course, that's manipulation. That's a way that they feel that they have control over you. And for a while, maybe they did. Maybe those ideas, that they expressed that were completely a 180 from what you experienced, you still kept the relationship going. You still kept showing up. You still were there when they needed you. And then when something happened and the past got brought up again, and their truth about you got brought up again, and you're again saying, wait a minute, that's not my truth of what happened. And usually with the truth, there's one person's idea of the truth, your version of the truth, and then somewhere in between those two versions is the actual truth of what happened. But if you can stay in your alignment with Source and know that you did the absolute best that you could under the circumstances, and that you have forgiven yourself, then where do you go from here? You don't want these people out of your life. They're the closest things that you could have. And yet they will not allow you to be the person you are now, which, the things that they're talking about were 15 years ago. And they're still holding on to that idea of the truth of how they were and how you were, or that how you weren't, according to their recollections. Now, if you feel like you've done every single thing that you can, and you have continued to do that, and they're still every single time dragging you back into their version of the past of what you did wrong, then there comes a point when the dissonance of their truth and your truth clash. And there doesn't seem to be any way to bridge it, because the ball is basically in their court. You know in your heart of hearts that you've done and did and continue to do the best that you can. And for some people, your best isn't good enough. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially coming from people that, you love more than anything. And they continue to keep you and hold you in a place where there's no room for growth. There's no room for coming into the moment, coming into now. Now. Because instead of doing any work on themselves, instead of doing any reading or therapy or having sessions or meditating or doing the million things that you can do now to find out what's really going on within yourself, there's no excuse anymore for any of us to pretend that there's not a way through this, whatever this looks like. The blame game can go on forever. The victim game forever. Unless you decide to stop the game and take a look at yourself and go within and say, okay, so is this true? Is it truth? Was I this way? And if you come up with a no, that you weren't, then the dissonance of their truth and your truth and attempting to make them compatible, and it doesn't, you can't, then it's time to step back and allow them to have whatever idea of you and the truth is. their truth. Everyone is allowed their truth. Everyone is allowed their opinion. Everyone has one. Right? Everyone has one. And if the clash is so great that it sends you into a downward spiral because you just don't understand why they won't come forward and bring you forward into the present, especially if they say that they love you, they're not walking it. You know, words are cheap. You can say anything you flip-flop and want. It doesn't mean it's the truth. It doesn't even mean it's true. It's whether you walk your talk, really. If you really show up for yourself and others. So if the dissonance comes to be something that is hurting you, then you've got to let it go. And I know that is a tantamount obstacle, especially if you don't want to let it go, especially if you love these people. But there's nothing you can do to change their perception of you and what they went through. Now, also in that combo is not only time that happened 15, 20 years ago, but also a lot of abuse in the addiction department within them. So they're remembering something that they are holding on to for dear life and making you the bad guy, filtered through not only 15 or 20 years of time, but 15 or 20 years of addiction. And won't do anything about it. Won't go to the 12 steps, won't go to therapy, won't read, won't listen. Communication is more than just talking. It's also listening. And if you don't get the opportunity to say your piece because you always get talked over or you get screamed at or you get treated completely hostile, then what are your choices? So, well, your choices are you can either continue to be abused by these people that you love, or you can let them have their idea and their perception of you, even if it's not the truth, even if it's not your truth, even if it's not the truth. You can let them have that because everyone's entitled to that. But you don't have to keep being involved on a level that you have been. You don't have to do that to yourself. You can let go and let God. Because at this point, if this is the dynamic, then you have to surrender it. You have to turn it over. Because otherwise, especially if you've been told that you were forgiven, especially if you've been told that you are loved and that everything's fine, and then something happens that, you know, the other person gets triggered by something that you say in the moment, and it takes them right back to the past and that idea of you that they cannot let go of. Then it's time to decide, well, I personally, you personally, can't keep this up. It's too draining. It's too sad. It's too heartbreaking. To be able to stand in the fire of someone's perception of you that is wrong. And there's nothing you can do to change it, because there's nothing you can do to change the flip-flopping past. Right now is our point of power. Not the past, not the future, right now. And if these people cannot meet you in the now, then it's time to let them go. It's time to surrender it over, trust and have faith that at some point, whether this life or the next, they will come to the understanding that their perception of you is wrong. Now, if the people that you're dealing with have a lot of ego, negative ego, then they'll never be wrong. You will. You'll be wrong forever, but they'll never be wrong. Because if they admit that they're wrong, then that changes their whole playing field. Because if they blamed you for their poor choices over the last 15 years as adults, and they still blame you for their poor choices because of something that they perceived that happened to them and it didn't, then what are you going to do? You're going to keep showing up and just being the whipping boy, girl, woman, person? Are you just going to say, you know what? God bless, love you with everything I am, and I have to let you go now? A lot of breathing. Boy, oh boy, this is a subject that can bring up a lot of breathing. And it has. And it will allow you, when you breathe the conscious holy breath, it will allow you to get in touch with the feelings that you have about being stuck in somebody's perception of you from the past. That won't allow you to come forward into this now moment. And you want it so much. You want to have the relationship. You want to talk to them and see them and just continue to grow together. You want that. And supposedly they say they want it too, but they don't. They want to keep you in a pigeonhole in their mind. Because if they move you out of that, then they're going to have to start taking responsibility for their poor choices. And they don't want to do that. Because they've aged, but they haven't matured. Because with maturity comes wisdom. And with wisdom, you realize that that's what all of this is about. It's about perception. And if the takeaway is that you are the worst person on the planet for what you did in their minds, and that is their truth, that they believe with everything they are, and you know that you're not that person, and you weren't that person. And if you ever did anything that you felt was way off, you apologized in the moment. And in the moment, you were supposedly forgiven. But if they're still holding your feet to the fire, time to throw some water on that and let them go. Time to grow up now. Time to stop living, like you were when you were a teenager. Time to be an adult. And let the chips fall where they may. It's very sad to have to live in the perception of somebody else's truth that isn't true for you. It's not your truth. So take a look in your own life where there's dissonance with you and others. These can be your friends. These can be your family members. These can be people at work. These can be lovers. It's all relationships, right? Whatever category they're under, it's about relating. First to yourself and then to others. So if you have a strong foundation of yourself, capital S, with spirit, then these kinds of things will hurt you and make you sad, but you're not going to jump off a cliff from somebody else's perceptions of you, because then they think they're right because, oh, look what she did or he did. Obviously, I was right about it. No. If you don't have the wherewithal within yourself to weather these kinds of storms, then yeah, you might want to check out because it's a lot. Hopefully you won't, because there is no checking out. You're eternal. You're a soul having a human experience. You're never done. And that's the whole thing about this. If they can't let it go and really forgive, and you can't do it anymore because the dissonance is so loud and so strong and so thick that you can't do it anymore, then they'll either come around in this life or the next. That's what happens. So it's up to you to decide what you're going to allow in your life anymore. So I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have the dissonance that I'm talking about with people, please let me know in the comments below. I am getting my website. It's almost ready. And then there will be links to that. And please keep breathing the conscious holy breath. That will help you immensely get through other people's ideas of you and your truth about who you really are. Thank you so much for joining me today. Om Namah Shivaya. In Lakesh, which is Mayan for I am another yourself. And namaste. Come back and see me. And subscribe, and subscribe. That's what it is. Subscribe. YouTube loves it when you subscribe. And me too. All right. Bye for now.